Welcome, friends, and thank you for tuning into the Optimal Health program today. Hope you're all doing well. Sorry for a little bit of a delay today. Invariably, when I want to get somewhere and have to be somewhere at a specific time, something always pops up. Today, very busy with patients. A few patients didn't have appointments, wanted to come in and ask a bunch of questions, so sat back a little bit and had some conversations on a variety of things, on nutrients, on NAD, and these are not questions that are yes or no or hey, how are you doing? So it takes a little bit more time. So that and a little bit of traffic on the LIE. So I apologize for being late. Still, we'll have a lot of great information to cover with you, and we'll be taking your calls here at 888-420-9272. 888-420-9272. I know we have a lot of people that are on Rumble, and we can see them lining up, waiting for the program to start, which is pretty cool. So we thank all our Rumble people, our TikTokers, our Instagrammers, our Redditors, if we can call them that, everybody who's watching and listening, Spotify. Thank you for watching, and certainly for all the wonderful calls and emails and comments. It's very nice to hear. So let's talk about some interesting things, interesting studies. There's a study talking about reducing 7 risk factors for heart disease may help to lower Alzheimer's biomarkers. And when I see studies like this, and I read through these things all the time, try to find something interesting to say or talk about. There is a vascular dementia mechanism that contributes to Alzheimer's, and it's the same mechanism as heart disease. So without this article saying that, we know that vascular problems create dementia. It's not unusual and unlikely to hear or see this, but it's not put into I believe, the right context. So all the things that can damage the blood vessels in and around your heart or any area of your body, your liver, your kidney, your pancreas, your gut, also occur within your brain. A lot of people think of the brain as being this separate entity and not behaving in the way that the other organs do. And yeah, it's got its own specific biochemical individuality, but it still needs blood flow, oxygen, vitamins, minerals, and hormones. So if there's a decrease in any of that, the brain is going to change. And of course, for everybody who's ever lived, as you get older, your brain is shrinking and the size of the brain decreases. You're not making all the new cells you did when you were a kid or a teenager or a 20-year-old. So you're losing cells, losing neurotransmitters. If outside factors come into effect and damage your cells, like heavy metals, it's an absolute. We know that aluminum is linked directly to dementia and Alzheimer's, but all the metals are bad for your brain. Infection would be bad. Low vitamins, low hormones are bad. So there's a lot going on. It's not as though there's this one process that occurs, gradually over time. There are multiple factors. There always are. In everything we talk about, there are multiple factors behind the presentation of your symptoms. So, of course, changing these markers and changing the effects make a great deal of sense. But, the idea herein is looking at a healthy BMI, regular exercise, non-smoking, absence of high cholesterol, diabetes, hypertension. Yeah. Does anybody disagree with the fact that those are important things to fix? Well, yeah. And honestly, fixing all of these things, and we'll talk about a lot more, are great for your body. So they would certainly be great for your brain. Now, if you expand that and you talk about correcting your vitamin levels, which your body has requirements for, your hormones that you have requirements for that tell your organs and cells what to do. If we look at exercise, flooding oxygen, vitamins, minerals, and hormones into your tissues, of course. If we look at testing for blood and urine for heavy metals, get them out of the picture, makes a great deal of difference. So all of these things have to be understood. Looking at the microbiome and looking at how your gut controls your body. It's the doorway into your body. And if you can fine-tune how you present foods to this glistening, wonderful, should be highly functioning tissue. If you take away bad things that inflame it, like a food allergen or junk food or chemicals, etc., yeah, you'll absorb better. And all day long, I see people when we test their bloods that have low vitamin levels. Sometimes their proteins are low, etc. So these things can occur if the gut's not working right. That's why we do a comprehensive, stool mechanism looking at all of this. So changing the diet, correcting nutrients. In many cases, when people take some nutrients, take a little bit of extra water with them because the water helps to bring those nutrient particles into your body. Do some exercise within 15, 20 minutes of taking your vitamins because now the blood's going to pump and grab that and deliver it around. There's a lot to talk about that are much more specifics than some of the generalizations. So although I like that study, it's sort of superficial. And we need to dig deeper, and we need to have a far more greater understanding of why things are occurring. And for everybody, we want to fix your gut. For everybody, we want to take food allergens out, get rid of heavy metals. For everybody, we want to have great nutrient and hormone levels. So it's important to understand all of this. Okay, phone lines are open if you'd like to call in or send us a message, a note. Frankie's here manning the battleship and keeping everything working perfectly well.
We already have a question asking, is Dr. Calapai on Sundays? Negative.
Am I on Sundays?
Saturdays, Mondays, and Fridays.
Yep. Monday, Friday, 12:30 till whenever, and Saturday, 2:30 onward. When I did radio, I was on Saturday mornings at 8 o'clock and Sunday evenings at 6 o'clock, and then got pushed back to 9 o'clock or so. And it was fun. As I've said many times before, there's no direct connection or cohesiveness with listeners on radio. You're talking to people, and some may come in and some may not. And at the point that I was on radio many years ago, probably 10 or 12 years ago, I was fortunate enough to be on one of the big stations, and a gentleman who was on that station, who had a very big following, very kind person, had become ill, and he had passed on New Year's Eve, probably 10 or 12, maybe a few more years ago. And the station asked me to take over his spot, which had more listeners than I ever would imagine on radio. And we were flooded with patients for a very long time because of that. He had a wonderful, very interested group of, followers, very diligent, very loyal. And we were just flooded with patients. But with radio, you don't have the comments, you don't have the ability for a person to, text you or type a question and you can answer it and you can chat back and forth. It's just, I think it's nice. Also, the visual is pretty nice too. So we like that.
Yeah, we got a question from Reddit. I've heard that gut health is connected to mental health. How does the microbiome affect things like anxiety and depression?
So, as I described, the gut is a doorway into your body. And if you want to have great vitamin levels, your gut's got to be working well to absorb and break down. Got to be taking them too. And again, we know what to recommend for you because the blood test tells us. If we see dysfunction in absorption and digestion, if we see inflammation or allergy affecting the lining of the gut, if we see poor absorption, low protein levels, the list goes on. We need to correct that so whatever you're eating is your best foods and your best nutrients can become the building blocks of your immune response, cardiovascular protection, anti-cancer benefit, your hormones. So everything revolves around great things getting into your gut. It's something that for forever has been, ignored by, the common approach or the traditional approach, but it's such an important process. Because if you try to take vitamin D and you're not absorbing it well and you're looking to get some protection or immune benefit or bone benefit, if you're taking thyroid hormone, if you're taking DHEA or female hormones, and they're not getting in, you're not getting the benefit. You could name any part of your body. They all rely on that gut absorption to create nutrient density, hormone, density and specificity. So there's so much that goes on specific to this. There are some people that have inflammation and then will pick up an infection. That infection will cause more inflammation on top of that. And to some extent, that can affect your hormone levels. And hormone decline causes anxiety, irritability, panic sensations. There are some people on a slightly different realm that have too much carbohydrate. Blood sugar goes up. They dump insulin. They're insulin resistant. Blood sugar drops. They become anxious, panicky as a result of that. There's so much that's going on all at the same time. It's like multiple games being played all at the same time to set up the background for your symptoms. So all of it has to be evaluated.
Got this one from Reddit. Also one from, there's one from Rumble just says, I hope RFK takes all this out of our food. And then we have another one from...
That's what we're praying for. So, again, I don't want to make too many... should I take the phone call from my mom on the air?
I love it. Please.
Hey, hello. This is me. I'm on the air. You're on the air. Theoretically, nobody can hear you, but I'm on the air. Well, I didn't put you... I didn't have you speak into the microphone here, but we're on the air, Mom. Yeah. So just watch it. Watch it on YouTube, Mom.
Yeah, I know, but I have YouTube on and it's not on.
It's on. Go back on and take a look at it. I got to get back to the show.
Okay, good.
All righty. Okay.
I love it.
My biggest fan. She probably started to look at 2:30 and realized that it wasn't on, and she tried to figure out what's going on. So where were we? So, yeah, we're talking about trying to fine-tune every component so that every part of your body works better and best as a result of having great, gut absorption. And, yeah, RFK, thank God for him. And, everybody who is an honest and a real and a human-loving and appropriate person wanting to make everybody healthy, and everyone should be able to want to do this. Everybody should be saying, thank you for him taking this spot to be able to get the crap out of the food and to stop the dangerous things that are being done. You still hear some people on one side of the crooked road, street, whatever, they don't like it. How do you not like that? How do you not like looking into all this, doing research, follow the science? Yeah, you want us to follow your science that's not scientific, or follow the science that is the health and the safety for all the people? Who would not want that? The only people that don't want to have health and safety for everybody and have real good research and good conversation and debate and arguments and such, whatever it is, are people who are doing things, I think, inappropriately, or who have something to gain from doing things that are just not right. Companies that make toxins and poisons and companies that make Roundup, still on the market. We know that contributes to cancer, but still there. Home Depot still carries it. It's wrong. Dyes and colorings and all this stuff, garbage in the food, shouldn't be there. Especially because the companies that make these things here make it here, but they don't have it in European countries. You can't deny that he's doing an important thing. Let him do his research. Let this come out. Get rid of these things within the foods, because we know there's research on that. And let him do his thing. The first kind of honest guy that I've seen in a very long time trying to do the right thing. Don't block people from trying to do the right thing.
I love it. And we have Susan.
Gotta get him on the show somehow.
Yeah, we'll get him. We'll get him, Doc.
We must.
We have Susan Spencer on Rumble just saying, God bless your mother. So I love that one.
Thank you very much, Susan. Mom is funny. She's 95 and vibrant and strong and ready to laugh at the drop of a hat. So I always tease her about one thing or another. And, I'll go over there a couple of days a week and either have lunch with her, or tomorrow, Sunday, I'll go over there and I'll do a little food shopping for her. She'll give me a long list of things that she likes. Have to get the good lamb chops from Christina's Epicure in East Norwich, Oyster Bay area. And she likes her strawberries and the fruits and all the good food. So I'll go and pack up the car and get a whole bunch of things and pop over there in the morning.
I love it. We got another one from Reddit saying, I've taken probiotics every day, but I've read that not all of them are actually effective. How do I know if the one I'm taking is actually doing anything?
Well, like anything else, we have to check the problem and then make the recommendation. So, granted, most people will take supplements and vitamins and probiotics and just wing it and see what happens. So That's better probably than doing nothing, but it's not going to hit the nail on the head. So if we test the microbiome, if we test a variety of these things and look at your vitamins, minerals, hormones, and then make the recommendation, you tend to get great results because we're working with the facts that your body is showing us. So that's always the best way to do it. Similarly, many thousands of people, probably millions and millions of people over many years, will change their diet on their own and will say, well, I changed my diet, I didn't feel any better, but you're just doing a random crapshoot in a way. So you're not doing anything really specific without looking at your testing. And when people take vitamins, and they might think that 500 units of vitamin D is a lot, and it's not, they're not getting their D to come up, and they say, I took the D, it didn't do anything. Well, you need to take 5,000 units, or we need to give you a shot of 50,000 units that'll last over the course of, 3 or 4 weeks. So it's always within the specific testing that tells us what's wrong. We make recommendation and we retest to prove that you're getting the result from your words, from your comments, because we want you to track all of your symptoms. We give you a symptom checklist to write down all of your symptoms and you track them. So when we see each other a month later, we have your blood work and we have your list of improvements. It's the best way to do it. You have to be really scientific with this.
All right, got a few questions flooding in from all different angles of the internet, but I'll keep it with the gut right now. There's another one that says, I feel like my digestion has slowed down as I've gotten older. Are there certain foods or supplements that can naturally improve digestion?
So the question would be, why is the digestion or potentially absorption as well changing over time? Sometimes hormone decline does that, sometimes inactivity. So we, again, do the big blood test, correct your vitamins, minerals, hormones, get you back to the activity level, then all of this starts to change and starts to revert back to where you had benefit and function before. One of the things that we use is called IGF-1, the active component of growth hormone. When you have a lot of that as a kid, your body's invincible. As you get older and it drops, you're losing the signaling that your cells need to function. So you see changes in hair, skin, nails, memory, mood, concentration, focus, muscle exercise, and endurance. So there are a lot of different things that control those aspects. For some people that have digestive changes that we find are food allergy related, you take the foods out, all of a sudden, your function's back. If it's deficiency in magnesium or potassium, and we correct that, then the bowel function improves. So it really depends upon what's happening behind the scenes within that type of testing.
All right, we have one from YouTube asking, my eosinophils are getting high. What would be the reason?
Those are usually a cell group that responds to allergy. So in many cases, when you see elevated eosinophils, the person has allergies. And in the same blood test, because that's part of our big blood test, we're looking at 200 different things, by the way. I know some people online in labs are talking about 100 things in your blood test. That's like old. It's like passe, we're talking about 200. So if the eosinophils are high, and we also do a screening with blood for allergy, it's not the final word on allergy, but it's a screening, you might see that the IgE antibody is high, another allergy direct antibody. And we might test whether it's foods or inhalants, environmentals. You might see a bunch of things popping up. Of course, if it's food, take them out. If a person says, well, I have a reaction, I know when I eat this food, and it's not showing up on the blood test, doesn't mean you're not allergic. It means the antibodies weren't near the needle, for that blood to take 3 seconds to fill up the tube for the allergy test to show up. So you still could have antibodies all over the place, but if they're not near the needle for that 3-second delivery, you're going to miss it. So then we do skin test. So eosinophils are a great harbinger, warning sign of allergy. To some extent, they may correlate with parasites, but much more specific for allergy than anything else. And honestly, when I first started practice in 88, 37 years ago, actually, no, that was my East Meadow office. I started in 88. I was working in a couple of other doctors' offices, one in Flushing, one in Queens, before that. So I really started in 87 when I got out of my internship, but I was moonlighting in my internship. So I really started in 87 and late 86, but either way. So, yeah, you want to look at all these mechanisms to see why your body is having certain changes. And I was speaking to a patient today, hey, do the extra test. And so a woman came in with her husband. They're great patients. They've been around for a long time. Their last name starts with an A. I'm sure they're listening now because we were talking about this. And I called them the A-team. And she's got some lung issues. And they went to the primary care doctor, and she wanted to have a pulmonary function test. And rationally, she and her husband thought it was a great idea. I thought it was a great idea. Why not do it? Do it. Let's see what your lung function's like. If you haven't done it ever, or if it hasn't been done in a while, do it. Let's see if your lung's changing, or, there's a problem. She's had asthma for many years. Just do the test. But for some reason, a lot of doctors just don't want to do the extra tests. I mean, all day long, I tell people that if you have a bad joint, let's do the MRI. If you have Medicare, we'll just write the prescription, get the MRI done. We like the stand-up MRI centers because they're nice and wide open, relatively new. Great facilities, but you can't look at an x-ray and say, okay, I know everything about this knee or hip or shoulder. Got to have the MRI. With the functional MRIs, and I was going to talk about that a bit as well, there are new MRIs that give you better pictures, and certainly for tumors like breast and otherwise, and for brain, of the surrounding tissue and maybe spread of tumor or more inflammation. So those are great tests, but you've got to do the secondary test just to get the better picture.
All right, another one. Reddit going off today. I love it.
Beautiful.
So this one's on leaky gut. I've heard a lot about leaky gut syndrome, but my doctors say it's not a real condition. What is the truth? Does it actually exist? And how do you know if you have it?
So there are a lot of things that occur within your gut that the traditional realm doesn't have the desire to really look at or understand. So, and I'm not the first person to comment about this. Patients talk about this all the time for every medical concern that we talk about. But inflammation can occur in your gut and make it difficult for things to get inside. Inflammation could occur and cause some damage so that things that are meant to get in, as they might be crossing the membrane and getting in, are not kept and could leak back out. That's the concept or premise of leaky gut. So looking at your microbiome, looking at the comprehensive digestive stool analysis, looking at your absorptive digestive ability, if you're taking tons of vitamins and your levels aren't good, this will give you a clue as to what's going on. For a lot of people, we do intravenous vitamin therapy because it's 100% absorbed into the vein. For a lot of people, correcting their hormones, sometimes using a hormone cream as opposed to a capsule. If your gut's not working right, we may have to work on the gut a bit to be able to enhance its function. I like using things for the gut like glutamine. That can be beneficial. Probiotics, of course, there are many types. Also, stem cell therapy. And I don't want to miss talking about that. And even for some of the other things we were talking about, your cells will go to where you have damage and degeneration and make brand new cells. And we've seen it for brain, eye, heart, lung, liver, kidney, pancreas, every part of your body. So we've seen it with people that have colitis, a gentleman which we're going to interview here within the next month. Talk about spectacular recovery from colitis with STEM. So with leaky gut as well, the mechanism of that, if cells are damaged and they're not doing their job and you put brand new cells in there, they'll go to where the damage and degeneration is and create brand new cells. So that may be the greatest of all of the recommendations for leaky gut. But then you have to test, make recommendations, and then retest to prove that what we've done has worked.
All right, on to Instagram. We have, I'm 38. I've been dealing with constant bloating no matter what I eat. Could this be food sensitivity, or is it something more serious, you think?
The first thing that comes to mind with bloating, and this is, I've seen this a million times, if I've seen it once, and I've seen it a million times, is usually a delayed reaction to a food. Now, if you eat something today and you don't get bloated, okay, you'd think that what I had today was fine and it's not a problem. But it may take hours or days or maybe a week for all those antibodies to build up to create, hitting that threshold to create that symptom. So not everything with allergy is an immediate reaction. So you could have something today that bothers you a few days or a week later. So in testing for that, if we get rid of those things, then you start to see the changes. A lot of people that have bloating, probably more than most other foods, it's related to carbohydrates and grains because they're all GMO now. So the GMO effect can cause the problem. Also, the excess carbohydrate from the grains can cause a problem. Everybody knows from TV commercials how malt, barley, and hops, are ingredients that make beer, and yeast. It's like you're, making beer in your gut. You have all this crazy stuff going on, and the sugar effect and certain organisms in your gut will just thrive on that and create this bloating. There are other circumstances where people may have infection in the lining of the gut or inflammation, and that may not be directly caused by an allergy per se, but an infection in the gut. Almost anything you eat starts to make you feel uncomfortable because that area of the gut is inflamed. It's like saying if I fall down, I scrape my leg, I can pour water on it, it's going to hurt, because anything that hits the gut, if you're generally inflamed, is going to create a problem. So we have to look at that and see what the underlying causes are.
All right, we got a Rumbler asking, I've heard that RFK Jr. Is pushing for the removal of certain artificial dyes from our food. What is the science behind this, and how might it affect our health?
There's a ton of science behind dyes, and you could easily look up, red dye, yellow dye, tartrazine. There's so many things that are put into foods that you don't want there. The perfect thing and comment that comes to mind is that there's a PhD named Richard Lewis, and he wrote a book about food additives, and it's a very thick 1 to 2 inch book, and it lists all the different chemicals put into foods. And I remember looking at this years ago. It's probably in a 3rd or 4th or 5th edition or something by now. But for example, there may be 65 chemicals put into chicken, but they don't have names. It's just numbers and letters. And when you look at the profile, safety profile of those chemicals, when it's heated too high, then it may, create a change in the chemical that may be precancerous or cancer contributing or causing. And in some of those studies, beef had 75 chemicals in it. I feel like looking online to see if I could find that book and look at the exact title, because I think it's important to understand the chemicals that are in foods. This is just a small
Food Additives Handbook.
Is that it?
That's what I'm.
Food additive handbook.
That's what I'm finding.
Yep, that's it.
Get it on Amazon right now. Richard J. Lewis.
Yep, food additive handbook.
Provides data on some 1,350 food additives, including direct and indirect additives, packaging material, pesticides, animal drugs. Yep. Wow.
And when I first read this years ago, and we'll see when it was first. When it first came out, I don't know.
Yeah, let me see.
There's a whole bunch of them there. And a lot of different people that have authored books on food additives and chemicals. So it's not hard to find. But a lot of the things that are in the foods are either carcinogenic or can damage absorption, digestion. Look, glyphosate is found in a lot of food now because that spray that's used to kill weeds is getting into all sorts of places and into foods, from what they're saying. So it'd be interesting for you to look that up and even read some of the pages in that book. You'll see how many chemicals are in our foods. It's horrible. You have to get rid of all of that.
Yeah, it was, I believe the chemical was cellulose, and they're in all the, if you ever buy, instead of buying the full chunk of cheese, you'll get it shredded.
Yeah.
And it's called cellulose. But when you actually look at that, the terminology and what that actually is, it's wood chips. It's wood chips.
Yeah, yeah.
They're putting it
Cellulose
in the cheese.
is a plant, yeah.
So it doesn't separate.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't stick together.
Well, I've always seen, if you go to the supermarket and they leave meat out a little bit longer than it should, it just starts to look bad. Of course, they spray it with this bloody colored substance. And it was something on TV a few weeks ago, talking about a person who was a individual that left a food industry, and he said that when the meat would start to go bad, they would just mix it all together and then dip it in the blood of whatever animal they still had that was kind of hanging around from butchering, just to make it look more red and beautiful. And you're not getting the cut that you're getting. There's also something called meat glue.
Oh, yeah.
If you read up about meat glue, they're just taking crappy scraps of. I'm allowed to say crappy, right?
Oh, yeah.
Good. Crappy.
Way worse than that.
Crappy scraps of meat and putting them all together, dyeing them, coloring them, and then making it stick together with this meat glue so it looks like, a steak, but it's really not a good steak.
Yeah. That's crazy. That's heinous, especially adding blood, that's just.
Well, some of these companies are just kind of pulling the wool over our eyes. I mean, I saw something else on TV where they had these chicken and they stuck this thing into the chicken and just like puffed it up. So it was a metal rod and pressed a button, and whether it was a liquid or a chemical or something, it made the chicken breast look big and healthy because they just stuck this thing in there. So I don't know. People really have to, and this is my suggestion, always been, look, read, learn, go online, look for some of these things. Years ago, I saw this documentary on beef or how they kill the animals and what they do to it. You're not going to like what that documentary shows. Don't remember the name of it, but look at some of that and see what's coming to your plate.
Don't go to the meat. I don't want to see any of that.
Yep. Okay, 888-420-9272. If you'd like to call in to ask a question or send us a little note, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, we got another one on RFK asking about what is the deal with fluoride in drinking water? Why is he so concerned with fluoride?
Because I think that studies have shown that fluoride may be damaging to your body. It was used early on to help to protect against infection and dental effects and cavities, I believe, and there are some studies that say that it may be damaging to your brain. So, and not every country in the world has, fluoridated water. So again, another thing for people to look up and try to find articles on. What I do on Google, which is really cool, is you could do a search. Let me see what it's called, because it does a Google search for terms that you can put in there. And like I look up heavy metals in cardiovascular disease or heavy metals in organ disease, and then they'll send me an article or a study on that whenever something pops up. So it's a Google search. So I think it's pretty cool to have. So being able to do this will get you some interesting articles. Yeah, of course I can't find it when I'm looking for it. But oh, wait. Google Scholar Alert. That's it. Google Scholar Alert. That's what it's called.
So what is that exactly?
Google Scholar Alerts. You can go on Google Scholar and then click in their ability to send you an article about a topic that you want. So if it's heavy metals and cardiovascular disease, that's one of my searches. Every couple of days, I'll get some articles on heavy metals and cardiovascular disease. So there have been a bunch of these I've looked at that are pretty fascinating. Now this one is interesting. Nutritional and chemical characterization of cow, camel, and goat meat from Kabridahar, Ethiopia, comparing different foods, chemicals, heavy metals in the foods. So I think it's important to try to find research and try to find information and let that be a guide for what you do and don't want to eat. So, I have dozens and dozens of the Google Scholar alerts. I think it's a great idea. And I tell people, get on Google Scholar, start searching. You'll be amazed, and you'll love the fact I have patients that do it all the time.
So we got this one. I've been reading about processed meats like bacon and deli meats being linked to cancer. How much is too much, and are there other healthier processed meat options?
It's hard to say. You want to try to get something as organic as possible, from like a Whole Foods, or I don't know if Trader Joe's has a gigantic variety. I know Whole Foods does. But you don't want the chemicals, the sulfites, etc., in the bacon. You don't want those chemicals to exist because increasing that chemical exposure increases the risk of colon polyps and tumors. So as organic as possible. Some people like to have organic turkey bacon because it's without the chemicals. So there are things you might be able to find in your best local health food stores that just don't have the preservatives and the chemicals in them. Because those things carry the carcinogens. You don't want to have that. If you want to have, and you're dying for a piece of regular bacon once in a blue moon, it's not going to kill you, but you should try to make a habit of eating the healthiest things you can because your body will do better from that, as opposed to even adding small amounts of the bad things.
Got one on YouTube asking, I've been looking into bison, venison as alternative to beefs.
Yeah.
Are these meats really healthier, or
Yes.
do they have specific benefits?
No, they are far healthier because there's no industry creating chemical injections and blah, 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 and feeding the animals with all this crazy stuff.
Is that the reason, or like if there were to be, let's just say there was a cow and if they were
or a
raised the
deer.
same, would it still be?
Well,
it's
it's still good meat. I mean, if you have a cow that doesn't have any injectables, they're not eating anything that's a chemical, then it's probably better. It's certainly better than a cow that does.
Right.
But the market for beef has been so completely controlled and manipulated that you have to be really careful. And you have to get things that are organic. Like, it'll cost more in Whole Foods, but it's still safer for you. But bison and venison, typically the animals don't eat junk. And there's no industry creating all this stuff to prepare and inject and do all that to the deer or the bison. And even wild boar is good because they eat vegetation in the fields. And wild boar, and what I've seen personally, the wild boar, eat oranges and grapefruits from these bushes in Florida, and they root up these mushrooms and such in the ground. So when you compare, and studies have compared that, they don't have the chemicals in it. So it's not going to be a big fat pork chop like you might get in a restaurant, but it'll be smaller, but it's more healthy and more organic.
Right. I actually stumbled upon a video. I'm trying to get it up, but I can't find it. But this is a video of, when they stamp, oh, look at this. This is grass-fed beef. And you see a video of, all of these cows lined up as usual, unable to move anywhere. And there's just this machine that goes over them and just dumps pounds and pounds of grass, over their heads.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And then they just keep eating. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, how sweet, how nice.
It's of course, certainly not fair. And again, I don't know their entire life, but maybe feeding time, they kind of put them all together and dump everything in one place.
True.
But it'd be nice to know that they're roaming around, they're having a nice time, they're going out for a little espresso with their girl of their choice. You want the cow to have, a nice existence before, we slaughter them and eat them. So.
Oh, I like this one from Reddit. I've heard that cooking methods can affect how healthy meat is. Obviously, fried is avoidable, but what are the best ways to prepare meat to keep in nutrients and avoid harmful compounds?
It's a good question. You don't want to burn things. You don't want to char things. And for most meats, and I have a good friend who's a 3-star Michelin chef. If you put meat on a grill, on a flame, and you're cooking it, you're dehydrating it. So all that dripping is going to come out. And for some of the meat that's kind of bloody on the inside, and you're charring the outside, charring, again, you don't want to have burnt charred meat. That would be a little bit of a risk. It's probably better to put things in a skillet. Now, if you wanted to take a steak and make a very delicious recipe with tomatoes, steak pizzaiole, you're putting tomatoes and some seasoning in the pan, and you're putting the steak in there, and you're cooking it. You're not burning it. You're not charring it. And you can cook it to temperature. You can take a knife and cut it and see where the temperature is for whichever you like. And you're really maintaining all the good nutrients because you're not putting it over a flame. So that's what I was told. And it makes a lot of sense. And for those people that like the steak or the chicken or the venison, or you could make a stew out of it. You could do it in a crock pot. There are a lot of different ways to do things. And a good friend of mine whose mother was from northern Spain, Galicia, he had wonderful preparations. Very simple, very plain. You're cooking something in a clay pot over the course of a few hours at low heat, constantly basting it and, keeping all the nutrients together. it's a lot better for you than charring or burning things over a flame. And sous vide is also great. Sous vide is a mechanism, many people don't know it, but you could take a pot of water, like the same pot you'd put your pasta in, and this device hangs over the edge, and you plug it in and you create the heat to 150 degrees. It swirls the water, keeps it perfectly at 150 degrees. And then you could either present that food into that environment. Some people use a Ziploc or whatever, and or glass, and you could heat that food to the perfect temperature, and it's evenly, thoroughly cooked, and then the vegetables as well. And you could take that and then sear it a little bit, and you're also maintaining all of that juice, all of the good things in the protein. So
we got our Rumble chat. John Yarder says, butcher your own meat. The stuff in the stores is pumped full of salt water and flavor enhancers. And then he says, has anyone noticed how when you cooked meat years ago, it stayed the same size? No longer today. Interesting.
That's very true.
And then he's still going. He says, today you get water and white stuff in the pan that we never got before. Interesting.
Yeah, that's true.
That is.
Again,
things do shrink these days.
Yeah, shrinkage. One of the funnier episodes on Seinfeld. But yeah, shrinkage, food shrinkage. I agree. And if, I have a good friend who's a big-time hunter and he goes out and does all sorts of things, I go upstate and have some friends up there that belong to a big club. They'll go out and get elk, and perfectly wild and, free roaming natural elk and different, and deer and mule deer and all these things. And if you're ever to have some of that, the flavor is unbelievable. It's just, it's delicious, but it's because it's natural. And if you could butcher your own meat, or you get a really good butcher and just try to coordinate with them and see what they can get, the best of what they can get.
On with the meat, I've heard a lot of debate about whether grass-fed beef is actually healthier than grain-fed beef. Is there a real nutritional difference, or is it just a marketing trend?
It's hard to say. I think there are great nutrients in the grass. And look, those animals, are meant to eat grass, like cows and such, and deer are meant to eat berries and little things, in the wilderness, and so are bison. So their natural foods are what, they are geared towards. So I think the more natural, the better. Of course, we have to stop spraying stuff in the sky that may fall down onto the grass to affect the grass, which would affect the animals. But that's something to think about. I'll give you a little brain teaser there. But yeah, the more natural, the more that nature provides, or that we follow nature, I think the better.
And we got someone just asking, what is an antibiotic-free chicken, and how is that marketing?
So the reason that's an interesting marketing and probably a good marketing plan is because for many years, chickens were fed all sorts of things. So if you have a whole bunch of chickens stepping on each other and stepping in their own stuff, and in whatever conditions they're in years past, they were given antibiotics to kill the bugs that can make the chicken sick and make the chicken look sick and have some sort of poor presentation when they're at the supermarket. Arsenic-filled substances were given to them to help to kill the bugs that might make the chicken sick. But what happens? We end up getting exposed to the arsenic. So arsenic is in chicken, shrimp, rice, apples, California wine. So you have to be very careful, and you want to look at buying only organic foods so you're not getting those things. So yeah, that's what's been happening for many, many years. Fortunately, the tide has turned and that's changed. So there are far more organic sources. There's a great farm in Brookhaven, maybe, Molosky's Poultry Farm, that if you go to exit 58, I think, and go up 347 to 25 and make a right just past East Wind Spa, which is a big
this is for the Long Islanders in the chat, by
facility.
The way.
Yeah, for those of you out in Long Island, Molosky's Poultry Farm has amazing stuff. Terrific chicken, duck eggs, which are delicious. They're big double yolk brown eggs and just great stuff. They have free range and organic turkey. They have all sorts, venison.
We got this one from Reddit. I've been looking at plant-based meat substitutes, but I'm wondering, are they actually healthier than lean meats, or do they have just as many processed ingredients? I think I know the answer to this.
Yeah, so there have been comments that they're not healthier. There have been comments that they have to add other things in them to make them taste or look a certain way. So I would worry a little bit about that. Do your due diligence, take a look, read. There are articles all over the place on these things. But I don't know that they could make something as natural with that creation that you can in normal nature. So I'm not a fan of that.
I did try a Beyond Burger once.
Yeah.
No, not for me.
I mean, the taste wasn't good, and even if they made the taste better with some sort of chemical, I don't gravitate to that. And look at what's happening, and there are people, everybody knows the people who are trying to get rid of cows because they fart too much, and
Bill
they think
Gates.
that that's affecting it's such nonsense. Cow farting affecting global warming, the ozone layer, it's just nonsense. Look at Al Gore. No, Don't look at Al Gore. I was going to say, do not listen to Al Gore. How many times, and I have one of these memes on my phone, have we been told, oh, the world's going to end, oh, we're going to freeze to death, oh,
Underwater.
Underwater, and
New York City
all this
should be,
stuff. And
Atlantis, right?
Yeah, the thing on Instagram was talking about if any of these things were true over the past 40 or 50 years, we would have seen all this devastation, but it never happened. It's just a way for them to either raise taxes, to figure out how to get more money from us, and waste that money somewhere else. I mean, no one can sit back and say that the money is being spent that's coming from our taxes in the right places. Billions and trillions of dollars going to U.S. aid is going all over the place. We have no say or control, which is wrong. And I'd be willing to bet the farm that all this money that's supposed to go to these places are just taking a hard right or a hard left and going back to, people that want that money to come in. So politicians, I think, are getting all that money. So I just, I don't like it.
So it's funny you bring all this up, Doc, because there was an article that I saw come out maybe 2 days ago. And there is some sort of there's a climate meeting of sorts with all the nations, and they're doing it in the Amazon rainforest.
Uh-huh.
And they call it a climate summit. Okay, so Amazon forest, they built a road for this summit for them to go all the way through, like, to the top of this whatever in the rainforest. I'm telling you, Doctor, this road is acres and acres and acres long, and they just knock down all of these trees just for the
destroy
road.
the trees, destroy the animals, just to have these people
Just for the
who
summit.
fly in with massive,
Gulf streams.
massive carbon footprint, horrible planes, and I mean, the people who are telling that we have to do all this are the ones who are not. Here's one of the things that I did a screenshot of. In the 1960s, we were told that oil would be depleted in 10 years, raise taxes. In the 70s, we're going to hit an ice age in 10 years, raise taxes. In the 80s, acid rain. In the 90s, ozone layer. What happened to all that stuff? In the 2000s, global warming, climate change, etc. There's one guy I saw online, and there have been 41 climate disaster predictions since 1967. Their record so far is 0 out of 41. So, again, I don't want to alienate people that might have other ideas or opinions, but come on. Look at facts. There was a guy who was on some show talking about the fact that if the waters were going to rise 10 feet, Europe and Florida would typically be wiped out, and no insurance company would insure any homes on the water anywhere. If they thought within 30 years, because, there are 30-year mortgages, that would happen. So, all these odd things and comments, you think about for a minute, what? That's right. Why would that happen? So when you look back over all these years, 60 some odd years of predictions and ideas, and none of them ever happened. Thank you, Al Gore.
Words talk, numbers scream.
Right. Fact is fact. Whatever happened to all those things? But I'm sure Al and his cronies made a freakish amount of money on doing what they do, and they still keep, popping up and talking about that.
Oh yeah, I remember the documentaries. If we had a substitute teacher in class in my high school, the teacher would be crying in the back watching these icebergs melting. It's like we're all dying.
Well, everybody that's rational is concerned for the planet. Absolutely. Concerned for the oceans, concerned for all of this. But if you're given information that's not real, and that information creates a mechanism for some people to profit off that, that's wrong. And their predictions, like I say, all these predictions in the last 60 years were wrong. So you have to be very careful who you listen to and who you watch, and you have to do your own due diligence and read and learn and look and understand and look at both sides of an argument and see what makes sense.
John Yarder on the Rumble chat is just loving this. Said, bingo, climate change is a money racket. I love it.
Yeah, so we can become a little political, I guess, if people want to do that.
We got some medical questions as well. We're back to the meats. I know some meats are high in omega-3s like salmon, but are there any land animals that naturally have higher omega-3 content, or is fish really the only
not really.
way?
Fish is probably the best source. And I like olive oil, too. I think that's the best oil you could have because it's got antibacterial effect. It's just great for your body all the way around, so olive oil is great. And fish oil, of course, because it decreases prostaglandins, it decreases arachidonic acid. So, and some people enjoy having fish oil capsules. Some people like to eat the fish. And there are a lot of things I think of that I feel like I want to talk about. And I love salmon, not cooked. I love beautiful raw salmon, lox.
You're a lox guy?
Yeah.
I can never get into it.
I've just always loved it. But many, many years ago, I worked at a clothing store in Roosevelt Field. It was called Clappers. And I was an 18-year-old kid. I was in college, and I worked my way up to be a salesperson, did really well, and made a good amount of money selling clothes because it was super expensive clothes back then. But my friend Mark at the time had me over for, I guess, a Sunday appetizing, which all this food and lox and sable and whitefish salad. I'm a foodie. I love great flavors and things. And I was just blown away that I'm like, how does this stuff exist? And I know nothing about it. At 18. I mean, we had bagels and stuff, but, as an Italian, you have some bagels. You don't know anything else. I just fell in love with that stuff from that point on. So every now and then I'll have a craving for an everything bagel scooped out with whitefish salad, lox, and an onion. That's my perfect bagel. And once in a while, every month or two, I'll just do it. So there's a great deli in Plainview, and this place has the best salmon lox I've ever had. It is silky. It is so delicious. It doesn't taste like fish. It slides down your throat like something out of a dream. It's called Gaspe lox, Gaspe. Now, people who are listening to me that know maybe better than I, and a lot of the Jewish people out there probably have their favorite places to go to. This place is called Gold and Meyer. People say Gold and Meyer. Gold and Meyer. And I've gone there for years. It has the most spectacular, perfectly cut, perfectly silky tasting lox, Gaspe lox. So if people are anywhere near that area, you want to go there, you should, because their stuff is spectacular.
It's free advertisement right there.
So, yeah, you got to give credit to companies that do the right thing, and they always have done. And their whitefish salad, by the way, is phenomenal. So now I'm going to race home and go there on the way home and try to get some.
All right, so couple things. One, we got a response about the climate. God is in charge of climate. God got it. All right.
Yeah, hey, that's a great. We should make T-shirts.
I like that.
That's a great thing. God's in charge of the climate. Shut up.
We got another one on nitrate-free and uncured bacon. Deli meats at the store, are these really healthy, or is it just a
well, nitrate-free makes sense because nitrates and all of those things are, linked with issues and problems and side effects. So it probably makes sense.
And then someone wants to know if is red meat really linked to heart disease, or is that some nonsense?
I don't think so. You could look at all the people over many, many years that have done the Atkins diet. I knew Dr. Atkins, rest his soul. He was a great guy. Extremely intelligent guy, brilliant guy. as a doctor, a business person, did a lot of great work to get other doctors like myself, in the realm. So look at all the people on the Atkins diet that had a lot of meat in their diet and got rid of the carbs. They lost weight like crazy, burned down cholesterol, triglycerides, raced people away from cardiac disease. So if you're a person who has high blood pressure, high cholesterol, all these issues, gut problems, becoming diabetic because of the carbs, and you get the carbs down to 30 grams or so per day, and you're having great protein sources and great vegetables, lots and lots of vegetables, very low sugars and carbs, etc., your body will do well in 10 or 15 different ways. And now people are going beyond that and doing carnivore. But with all the Atkins diet patients I've seen over 37 or 8 years, because I've seen so many of them and I've been talking about low carb over that time, I've never seen a person have an increase in heart disease or heart risk by eating red meat. So I don't believe it. They've said, we spoke about this last week, I think, about eggs. They've always said, oh, eggs have cholesterol. They're bad. Eggs are not bad. They're great. They don't raise your cholesterol. All my patients for 37, 8 years have had eggs in their diet. And some people have a lot of eggs because they like them and you can do them all different ways. And I've never seen those people have high cholesterol or have high triglycerides or anything associated with that. What I tell patients is that if you get the carbs out of the way, your body can burn the fat as a primary fuel. Not that you have to go to full-blown ketosis like on the Atkins diet, where your ketones are, high in the urine and they do testing for that. But if you keep the carbs down, your body can burn the fat as a primary fuel. So you're burning cholesterol, triglycerides, all the bad LDLs, and you're also burning fat underneath your skin. So I think that's a great way to do it, especially when we have your vitamins and minerals and hormones in perfect range and exercise.
We got someone on Rumble saying paleo, assuming the paleo diet.
It's all the same mechanism. You can call it 10 different names. So many years ago was Atkins was the big thing. And then there was a zone diet, but for some people that still had too much carbohydrate in it. I think it was 40, 30, 30. Still too much carb. And keto zone, it's all the same idea. It's just some of them are varying amounts of allowed carbohydrate. But here's a great point, and I spoke about this today with my A-team patients, the 2 people that came in. I said, I'm not going to recommend a name of a diet for you. I said, what do you mean? I said, doctors may recommend Atkins, keto, zone, paleo, beep-a-bop-a-boop. I don't want to fit you into someone else's idea of what you should do. I want you to do a diet that fits you. I want to have the Joe diet or the Daniel diet. I want you to have foods that are great for you. I don't want you to have any foods you're allergic to. I don't want you to have foods with chemicals in them. I want you to have lots and lots and lots of vegetables. Now, of course, if you have certain issues, you can't have certain vegetables, then okay. If you have high uric acid, you don't want to have, spinach and, et cetera, calcium oxalate or whatever. But make a diet to you and not squeeze you into a book, because that diet to you is 1,000,000 times better. It takes into consideration everything you're going through. Fix your gut, great foods, get rid of the bad, get rid of the allergy, best types of natural oils, exercise, vitamins, correct your hormones. That's the way to go. 1,000,000 times better than fitting into some other diet recommendation without any knowledge. Granted, people that have written all those books have sold millions and millions and maybe trillions of books based on that, and some people do it and lose the weight, but the specificity for your body's not there. And some people have big problems and they go off that preconceived diet. No one's writing a book saying, oh, this is for Joe because I know about Joe. So the diet has to be specific to you and not specific to the book.
All right, another one from Reddit. I've been hearing a lot of regenerative. I've been hearing a lot about regenerative farming and its benefits for meat quality. Do animals raised this way actually produce healthier meat, or is it more about environmental impact?
There's a combination of things. What's in the soil? What are they eating? Is the soil great? If the farms they test the soil repeatedly and they're putting in great nutrients and calcium, magnesium, potassium. God, when I was a kid, my dad had a great garden in the backyard, and my mom and dad and my sisters, we'd all go help and do the thing. And occasionally my dad would just throw vitamins, multivitamins, like, human multivitamins into the garden, and our tomatoes became big. We had amazing homegrown food. So if you can control the soil and keep the nutrients in it and have good water and irrigation, you're going to have better things for the animals to eat. So, yeah, that would be a far better idea.
Got it. We got a funny comment and we got a question.
Okay.
Funny comment, never trust the food from a skinny cook. Love that one. Johnny Yarder. And then Mr. A. Watley on Rumble. Hello, I just stumbled upon this. I'm all into trying to get my gut in good health, but my doctor told me I needed to go do the paleo diet with zero gluten. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know any other circumstances or whether the doctor tested his vitamins, his minerals, his hormones, his microbiome. So
I'll just say real quick, if you want, you can call that number and we'll get you on the phone if you have a few, back and forths. But
So the gluten story is interesting. There are a lot of people who are allergic to gluten, so we take it out. But there are people who are randomly told, have no gluten, and they don't see any benefit because they may be allergic to the wheat. You can't have gluten-free wheat because if you're allergic to wheat, that's the problem. It can't just be removing the gluten. So in 99% of cases, when I tell people I want you to change your diet, I don't say go to gluten-free because it's just without gluten, but the grain, if you're allergic to it, is still the problem. And the carb content of the grain is still there. So I tell them don't have the grain. And overwhelmingly, for all the years that I've been doing this, when we tell people to have no grains, no bread, no rice, no pasta, no oatmeal, no grains for the week from the time that I do the consult and I draw their blood and the time that I have them back in a week later to do their review of their blood. And this is people that may have overweight, high cholesterol, gut problems, could be anything, skin problems. They all come back and say, wow, I kept away from the grains. I felt really good. I had more energy. My bloating went away. My headaches went away. My skin's clearing up. I see this all the time. So in most cases, when we talk to patients about things and what they're eating, I'll say, just for the heck of it, get rid of all the grains and tell me how you feel within a week. Everybody says, wow. Now, also remember that the grains now are pretty much all GMO. And, unless you have really good grain coming from Italy in a bag that's got no English words on it, it's Italian, blah, blah, blah. You're getting it from a guy, in a high-end Italian restaurant, blah, blah, blah. Then, that's different. But, yeah, the idea is that take all the grains out and then tell me how you feel. It works all the time.
All right, we'll see if he responds. We're on a little bit of a delay, but then we got another one. It says, the blacker the dirt, the better the food.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, for people who've done any gardening or farming and such, there are wonderful things to put in the soil. And composting is a big thing. That's been around forever. I'm sure for thousands and thousands of years. So we did it. And as a kid, we used to take, eggshells and chicken bones and whatever we had, we'd put into the soil and turn it up and it would get dark and have a lot of good things in it. Some people will take, manure and, peat moss and all sorts of other things, potting soil and put it into the garden, which is great. I mean, it just makes things grow better. There are some great organic additives that you can put and sprinkle over your soil to make it more rich and more nutritious. So, yeah, why not?
All right, let me see. Let's see what we got. Let's check out.
Got a couple of cool emails from the office, as we always get, and I try to write them down. Steve from Roslyn has issues with his knee. He believes that he may have bone on bone, and The doctors did an x-ray, and he's questioning, could it really be bone on bone if I could still walk around and go up and down stairs and not have excruciating pain? And I don't think that the x-ray gives you the full picture. It doesn't, so we want the MRI. Probably 75% of patients that I see that just have x-ray and are told by someone, either a tech or someone in the doctor's office or the doctor, that's bone on bone, we have to go in. When you do the MRI, it doesn't show the bone on bone. So maybe that's the bait to try to get you to go in for a cleaning, and honestly, got to do the MRI because that gives us the entire picture. Whether it's your ankle, your knee, your hip, your back, your wrist, your elbows, your shoulders, your neck, any of that, the MRI is a great, great picture. And Steve, as his second comment, wants to know the difference between PRP and stem cell. PRP, platelet-rich plasma, is taking blood, spinning, and getting 7 growth factors in small amounts in 3 tubes of blood, injecting them into a tear in the muscle or into a joint or ligament, and that'll provide some stimulus over the course of 3 to 4 weeks. It typically does not go beyond that because you're using it up, and there are some benefits that occur with that. If you're doing it for the vampire facelift, it's limited because all you're doing is putting some growth factors topically onto your skin. Some people will do microneedling, but I don't see great results when people have had that done. People come to me for stem cell, and if you compare PRP with stem, it's a different universe. Because stem, you're colonizing and dividing over a very long time to create repair. It's not limited to a week or 2 weeks or a month. If you do it for facial rejuvenation, we have, because it has a spectacular result. I tell people that these are the layers of your skin. You're putting in each injection, maybe a quarter-sized amount of the stem liquid, laying into your dermis, and those new cells start to become brand new skin cells and keep coming to the surface over and over and over and over again because you're colonizing the area, just like you would colonize a joint or colonize within the blood going to your pancreas or your heart, etc. So the benefits are just a world of difference with stem compared to PRP. Similar for your hair and your scalp. Stem, world of difference. Colonizing, keyword, and PRP, it's being used up over a really short period of time. So the PRP really aren't there by the second month or the third month, but stem will continue to be there over the course of years. So very big difference. Phone lines are open, 888-420-9272. If you'd like to call in to ask a question, you can do so now. Let's take a look and see what else we have here from calls from or emails to the office. Catherine, low back pain, some sacroiliac and sciatic. She hurt her back in the gym. So, when you're in the gym, you want to do activities that are really supported by the equipment you're using. And you have to be careful with some activities, either using too much weight, either on a supported machine, or taking weights and doing long step lunges. You have to be careful because that big long lunge step with weights in your hand is pulling on the middle of your low back, and that can shift the hip on the sacrum, shift the sacrum, and can create problems. A lot of people will get on a machine and will do a singular pulling movement for your back, but that's going to twist your back, and that may affect negatively the rotation of your vertebrae. You have to be very careful. Things should be done with light weights and pulled very slow. For example, the back exercises. So you're holding perfect position. You're not moving all over the place. And with very light weight, you do super slow so that your body has the time for the muscle to gain that blood flow and the stimulus. So for sacroiliac issues, we typically can do the PRP because we can pepper that into those ligaments that go between your ilium here and your sacrum, sacroiliac ligaments, and create some strength and repair. You have to stop doing some of those heavier activities and let your body heal for a while. But I would like people to think of when you go to do an activity, make sure that your body is locked in to that activity, isolating those muscles. Leg extensions, you're sitting in the machine, make sure that your seat and the angle of the machine is good. First, do it with very, very light weight or no weight just to see the movement and make sure that you're working the muscles you want to and not struggling and doing too much. That's a problem that people seem to have. They'll put too much weight on thinking it's going to make them grow, and all of a sudden they create a tear and an injury, and then you're set back, for 6 weeks or 6 months. So very deliberate movement, very, very slow. So people doing biceps, if you're doing one at a time or two, take 5 seconds to bring the weight up, hold it, for 2 or 3 seconds, 4 seconds, and then bring it down for 5 seconds. Let the muscle work in a nice range of motion, but not putting too much weight that you're just whipping the weight back and forth. It's nice and gradual, and hold it and squeeze and allow the negative to bring that, muscle back down. So you're creating stretch. So you got to be very careful when you're doing activities. Fortunately, I see more and more people going to the gym, in the past decade. And it's not just kids, not just high school kids, because there are high school kids that are just intent on doing every exercise, playing every sport. That's phenomenal. I love it. Just don't kill yourself. Just be very careful with the sport that you're doing. And people that are older, past high school age, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. I see people in the gym all the time at Lifetime, and I think it's great. Get out there, get a trainer to help you do the right movements, and nice and smooth and slow. And I applaud them for all getting up and going there, So it's a great trend now.
I miss the days when I could just, I can go back to the gym. I can go to the gym twice today. What a nice college experience. Couldn't find that time.
It only lasts a relatively short amount of time where you're invincible, and between 15 and 22 or so, you're able to do every bit of activity you want, run marathons, leap tall buildings in a single bound, all the crazy things, and your body can handle it and just ask for more. And you just do it. Your body changes over time. I'm not saying that you can't get the results you want, but it takes a very deliberate, specific way to do that with your training and correcting your vitamins, minerals, and hormones to levels that you had when you were 10, 15, or 20 years younger. We do that for patients all the time. So it's a process that takes some time. Once you correct the nutrients, that could take a couple of weeks, and your hormones, that could take a week or two. And you start doing the exercise. Nothing happens overnight, but if 3 to 4, 5 times a week you're doing the activities, whether you're doing some weights, Pilates, yoga, cardio, let your body acclimate itself and then give your body a little bit more activity to do week to week so that it allows itself at its pace at whatever age to create the best outcome. For the young lady who said that she loved my mom before, no one's going to believe this, but as my mom has been doing the exercise bike, I told her to do 10 minutes, 50 minutes a day. And then after a week or two, you feel comfortable, go to 20 minutes, 25 minutes, 30 minutes. And a couple of weeks ago, I spoke to her, and I said, well, how are you doing with the treadmill? She goes, great. I did 57 minutes on the bicycle. I said, 57 minutes? I said, that's unbelievable. She's 95, 57 minutes on the bicycle. I was watching, a movie. I enjoyed the show and the movie, and I just kept going. I'm like, wow, that's phenomenal. And you start to think of how many people at 50, 60, or 70 don't do that. But she's driven. She's got this in her mind and wants to do that. Some days she'll do a half hour in the morning. She'll go back and do another half hour in the afternoon. I said, however you want to do it. That's great. Yeah. So you got to keep the blood flowing.
Yeah. One of our main commenters today, John Yarder, he says, I'm 64 here and I could still make the youth look stupid sometimes.
There you go. I have lots of patients like that. One of our favorite patients, Vincent, is a tall, lean, tan guy and greatest personality, a lot of fun. The patients, staff love him, and he works out every day, and he loves it. He would never give it up, and he's in good shape. When I tell you good shape, he's got good-sized arms, chest. He's got everything in good proportion. And invariably, people go up to him in the gym and ask him how to train and how to work out. And does he work there? Because he sees them there. They see him there all the time. And I think this year he's going to be 78. I know he was 77 last year. So at some point this year, he'll be 78. But he looks so great, and he's taken such perfect care of his body. He looks like $1,000,000. And because of what I do and people gravitate towards this, I have a lot of 50, 60, 70-year-olds and some 80-year-olds that are in terrific shape, and they'll never give up the activity. Never. Which is wonderful. That's what keeps you healthy and makes you live a long, healthy life. Once again, 888-420-9272 if you'd like to call in to ask a question. Another
A lot of commenters.
good comments, yeah.
Oh yeah, we love Rumble. It's great to. We love our Saturdays. We get a little, we get a little conspiratorial.
Yeah,
We
a little
dabble.
this, a little that.
Little,
We'll start doing recipes one of these days.
oh yeah.
I'm trying to steal my mom's recipe book. And my mom's sister, Aunt Nina, who lived to 99 and a half, rest her soul, she had some great recipes. We'll put some recipes out there so people can see what they can do. You can get a little creative, too. A few weeks ago, we were talking about low-carb recipe books. There's a lot of them out there. And they're great. I think you can just get a little creative. So I tell people all the time, instead of regular rice, have cauliflower rice. And you can put that in a pan with garlic and olive oil, saute it a little bit. And you can even use the heads of the broccoli, the small heads, and just kind of chop it up and do that. And put in some tomatoes and put in any of the colorful peppers. You could use squash, chunks of that. You can put in any kind of seasoning, except really salty stuff. I like, Cajun seasoning. But you could put some nuts in there. I mean, you could make a whole big meal out of cauliflower rice and the added ingredients, and it's terrific for you. There's no sugar, no carb, and you've got great nutrient. Some people will do it with add some chicken to it. There's so many different ways to do it. You just got to know what seasonings you like and to just experiment. Let's go to another email from the office. Kerry has issues with thyroid. Her doctor has her on Synthroid, and she doesn't feel that it's working. So traditionally, doctors will look at only two thyroid blood tests, T4 and TSH. TSH is your brain telling your thyroid gland to make more hormone if you're low. So a lot of times you see a TSH that goes up, it means your brain's asking for more hormone. But there are people that have a low T3, but they never know about it because the doctor doesn't do a T3, just does T4, TSH. I'd rather do T3, T4, total TSH, free T3, reverse T3, T4, T3 uptake, thyroid antibodies, so I really know the entire picture, and then we can more perfectly make the correction. Invariably, especially when people are on T4 or Synthroid, levothyroxine, and they don't seem to get the result, their T3 is going to be low. So we check all that. And in many cases, you see T3 is low. So instead of just using a T4, we use a T3, T4 thyroid. That could be NP thyroid, Armour thyroid. So there are different USP thyroid, different sources that have both, which can be perfect to help to correct and improve that. And you want your TSH to be down as low as 1. If it goes up above 4, that means your brain's asking for more hormone. So the idea is that we can correct with a 2-type thyroid rather than just the 1-type thyroid. And there's literature that says Synthroid correlates with osteoporosis, so that would be a drawback as well. So doing the first and thorough blood test, looking at all that, sometimes lay an iodine on board. So it depends on what we see when we do the testing. A lot of good questions today, a lot of good calls today.
Yeah, Rumble's slowed down a bit.
888-420-9272. If you'd like to call in to ask a question, you could do so now. 888-420-9272. One of the patients today was saying that her doctor wanted to put her on Repatha to lower the cholesterol and the lipids. And brilliantly, she said as soon as the doctor said that, she got home, she looked online and saw all the side effects. And she just didn't want to be on it because it could affect your brain function. And maybe correlated with a decrease in focus or sharpness of your brain and maybe dementia. So it's smart when you're thinking of using a medication to look at all the possible side effects. So traditionally, doctors that used to be able to throw meds at people all day long, and to some extent they might still, people that are forward-thinking and smart will go online and say, hey, do I want to take that med? What are the side effects? Oh, will that interact with another medication that we're using? So you want to make sure you're not taking multiple things that interact with each other. Years ago, we used to do these great swab tests, which all the insurance companies covered, and they would test for pharmacogenetic reasons, looking to see if medications would be dangerous for you the way that you metabolize them, or two can't be used together because they're a bad reaction, or some things would never work for you. So I used to love that because we would see patients coming in on 10 different meds from different places and with different problems, and we were able to say, look, take this test back to your cardiologist and see if he can switch this or that. He'll be happy that you've done this. And then a lot of the cardiologists, a lot of the psychologists and psychiatrists were using that because a lot of the psychiatric meds were in question. So today the labs don't really do that because the insurance companies don't want to pay because those are expensive tests. So there's a company that I looked at a week or two ago called tellmegen.com. tellmegen.com, and for $149 you can get that test done and look at all that information. So I think that's a great way to do it. Okay.
Yep, slowed down a lot.
Pretty good. Pretty good day. Pretty good calls.
Incredible. So we got a Rumble record over here for sure.
Yep. We love our Rumblers.
And, to everyone that's listening on Rumble, this show is on LFA on Saturdays, but on Mondays and Fridays and Saturdays, he's running on the Optimal Health Program and Dr. Chris Calapai on YouTube. So you could see this show Monday and Friday on the personal channels as well.
We as well have a lot of people, a lot of patients that are busy, Monday and Friday during the day or on Saturday, and they just pop on YouTube and just see the latest show, at their convenience. So that's the beauty of this. When I did radio for all those years, you couldn't really get back to hear that program. We used to put them on the website for people, but we could always go back to any of the platforms that we're on. We're on, I think, almost 20 platforms. So you can go back and look at them. And YouTube's probably the easiest and the biggest one. So between that and Rumble, you certainly can. And email us questions to the office through the website, drcalapai.com. Garden City office, 516-794-0404.
I just included the link to the personal Rumble and the personal YouTube
Excellent.
in the comments for Rumble.
The more good information we get out there, the better.
Exactly.
And the more that we can help people fine-tune things. In most cases, it's all really a little bit of fine-tuning, for diet, for exercise. And a lot of people are just about there, but the diet needs to drop another 10 or 15 points of carb. May need to raise up another few points or another 20 minutes of exercise. They're just almost there, but a little drop in the carbs, little increase in the exercise or the intensity or frequency, and you have your great result. A little bit of fine-tuning with your vitamins or your hormones, great results. So it really depends upon what your body is doing right now. So the ultimate answer to that is the big blood test, about 25-page blood test. So all the information is there for you. We'd love to help you out. God bless you all. Have a terrific day. And give us a call. Tell us what you like, topics you want to hear about, and we'll get that set up for you.